Chapter 7 Great Expectations. I had been an apprentice for Joe for almost 4 years when Mr. Jaggers appeared at our door. I recognized him immediately as the man Estella and I had met in the stairs at Miss Havisham's years before. There was no mistaking those sharp, suspicious eyes and bushy black eyebrows. He spoke with great authority. I have reason to believe I'm facing the blacksmith, Joseph Gargery, and his apprentice Pip. Quite right, sir, answered Joe. My name is Jaggers, and I am a lawyer in London, sent to you by one of my clients. Joe was impressed by the grandeur of his speech and led him the way into the parlor. I followed, snatching the dust covers from the table, a chair, and the sofa. Mr. Jaggers took the chair by the table and, looking sternly at Joe, began to speak. I'm here with an offer to relieve you of your apprentice, Pip. It is to his good. Would you demand to be paid to let him go? No, I want nothing, and I would not stand in Pip's way, Joe quickly replied. Jaggers turned to me. My instructions are to inform you that eventually you will come into property and money. The person from whom these riches will come wants you to be ready and able to use them. Therefore, this person wishes you to be educated and brought up as a gentleman, with great expectations of wealth. I caught my breath. Here was my dream come true. Miss Havisham was going to make my wild fantasy a reality. Now, Pip, continues Jaggers, there are some conditions. First, this person wants you to always bear the name Pip. Second, the name of your benefactor will remain a secret until that person chooses to reveal it. If you have a suspicion who this person may be, you are not to hint at it, but keep silent. Is that clear? I nodded. Do you accept? I nodded again and assured Mr. Jaggers that the conditions were clear and that I would abide by them. Mr. Jaggers let a few minutes pass to signify how important his last words had been. Then he roused himself. Now, as to the arrangements, I have said that you have great expectations for your future, but, for the present, a very handsome sum of money has already been provided for you. It will be more than enough for your education and your living expenses. This money will be handled by me on your behalf, so consider me your guardian. When I tried to thank him, he held up his hand. No, no thanks. I am being very well paid for my services. Now, listen closely to my suggestions. You are to come to London immediately after purchasing some suitable clothes. There you will lodge with one Herbert Pocket, a young gentleman of your age. Perhaps you will be able to pick up some of his habits and manners of a gentleman from him. And I suggest employing his father as your tutor. What do you say to all this? Yes, of course, Mr. Jaggers, whatever you think is best, I said in a rush. I have heard the Pockets, for they are related to Miss Havisham. Mr. Jaggers' face became stone-like. Yes, I believe that is so. Now, here is some of the money for the clothes and the journey. He counted out 20 guineas on the table and added his business card to the money. Then he said goodbye and was gone. Joe and I continued to sit on the sofa, stunned. Biddy found us there, as still as two statues. But Joe came to his senses and poured out the story of my good fortune to her, then ran into the kitchen to try to make my sister understand what had happened. Left alone, Biddy shook my hand heartily, then said quietly, So your dream is coming true, Pip. I wonder if your others will too. She knew that Sorry. I knew that she was referring to my love for Estella, but I also knew that she thought Estella was proud and unworthy. So I only said, "Who knows?" My sister's mind was so weak that we were never able to make her understand what had happened. She smiled and nodded, pleased as the extra attention she was getting. Early the next morning, I went to the shop of Mr. Trabb, the tailor in our village. When his boy told the tailor When his boy told me the tailor was still at breakfast in his apartment behind the shop, I waited impatiently until he called me to the table. He did not think it was worth his while to interrupt his meal and come to me, nor did he offer me anything to eat as I stood before him. "Mr. Trabb," I began as he was eating, "I have come into some money." The tailor stiffened. He put down his buttered roll, wiped his fingers, and got up from his chair. His eyes widened as I took some guineas from my pocket and explained, "I am leaving for London, and I want a fashionable suit to wear on my journey." Mr. Trebb swept me into his shop and started a flurry of activity. His boy was ordered to lift various bolts of cloth from the shelf. Mr. Trebb then unfurled each of them, praising them all on me. With this assistance, I selected a cloth fit for a young gentleman. I stood still as he measured me, all the while assuring me that my proportions would make any suit look distinguishable. He even opened the door for me himself when I left. This, then, was my first experience with an enormous power of money. When the suit was ready, I wore it to Miss Havisham's to say goodbye. She told me she knew of my good fortunes from Mr. Jaggers and wished me well. Then she waved me out with her cane. I wanted to thank her, but I remembered Jagger's conditions and did not reveal that I believed her to be my benefactor. Her final words to me were, "Goodbye, Pip, and you will always keep the name Pip, you know." I nodded, waved, and left. As the day neared for my departure, Joe grew more and more solemn. Finally, he said, "It's not my apprentice that's being took from me, but a little child that's sat with me many a night by the fire, that watched me many a day at the forge." I turned away in fear. I'm sorry, guys. I turned away in tears, for I was so eager to leave, so eager for my great expectations to become a reality, that I had forgotten my dearest friend, Joe.